We're talking about Kowareta.
Kowareta. We all have at least heard of Kowareta, and most of us have seen over 50 comparisons of the damn thing. In fact, more people have beaten Kowareta than any other top 40, with only Arctic Lights and Kowareta even coming close. Even Kowareta, which has a similar style of gameplay to Kowareta, has close to 30 less victors than Kowareta. Landmark demons like Bloodlust and Plasma Pulse Finale have much less victors than Kowareta, and Kowareta has the 7th highest amount of victors on the entire main list. This made me wonder, why? Why Kowareta of all levels? Why not similar levels like Cognition or Kowareta? Why does Fragile, the extended remake of Kowareta, have only 14% of the victors? I'll answer all these questions today, so let's get started. An interesting thing to note about Kowareta is that many of its victors have jumped to it from levels in the legacy list. A prime example is French Fry, whose hardest demon was Prismatic Haze before he beat Kowareta. This isn't the only occurrence of this happening, and a good number of Kowareta victors made a 30 spot or more jump to Kowareta. Of course, some of the victors make a lot of sense, people like ViewSonic, Zeronium, and Lucalizer. These guys will beat just about anything you throw at them, so I'm sure they foamed at the mouth when they discovered a new top 30 to beat. I was fortunate enough to interview both French Fry and Braden Ball about their experience with Kowareta, and I have to say, thank you guys very much. Their channels will be linked down in the description below. And go and support both of them. They're very cool people who are very skilled at this game. You may recognize Braden Ball as the verifier and creator of Bad Idea number 1 and Bad Idea number 2. And you may remember French Fry from earlier. I asked both of them the same questions to see the difference between someone who had never had Kowareta as a hardest and one who did. The first question I asked was how they were inspired to play and beat Kowareta, and both said they were introduced to it by some friends. This gives us the first idea of why so many people are beating Kowareta. It spreads like a virus.
I've just been informed by the Britdarg PR team that I'm not allowed to make a joke like that, so I'm gonna replace it with this PR-friendly joke instead. Thanks.
Kowareta's like a really good TV show, in that both are so good that you tell your friends about them and essentially force them to experience them. This thus allows the influence and popularity of Kowareta to spread much faster than other levels. Because for the life of me, I cannot remember the last time someone told their friend to play Thinking Space. Next, I asked both of them why they chose to beat Kowareta instead of similar levels like Kowareta or Cognition. Both seem to say that Cognition is too hard and Kowareta is too fast, whereas Kowareta was just the right difficulty and speed. Another rather interesting detail, as Kowareta's structuring is fast beginning, slow middle, fast end, which is an uncommon structure type that appears in only one other extreme demon I know of, being Hurricane. Next, I asked them if they enjoyed their time with Kowareta. Braden had a much better time with Kowareta overall, but this may be because he had beaten Blind Blizzard before Kowareta, which he told me he thinks is harder than Kowa. French had a more unlucky time with the level, but he still said he enjoyed it more than he didn't. This again is interesting because I would have never expected a level where the hardest click is the first one to be fun. The penultimate question I asked the two of them was if they'd recommend Kowareta to newer extreme demon grinders. Braden's answer was kind of vague, but I believe he said he would recommend Kowareta to newer players. French gave a more clear-cut answer, basically saying that you shouldn't make a big jump to Kowareta, but if you've beaten levels close to it in difficulty, then playing it is a good idea. The final question I asked the two was whether or not they regretted beating Kowareta. Braden said he didn't regret it at all, but French said he did sometimes wish he hadn't beaten Kowa. A lot of this stemmed from mean and degrading jokes, which is an unfortunate side effect that comes with beating Kowareta. The only reason I don't think Braden ever got any of these jokes handed his way was because Kowa was never his hardest demon, or even his second hardest. That award still goes to Bad Idea number 1 and Bad Idea number 2.
So with that information at our hand, we can get a very basic and general idea of why so many people are beating Kowareta. This definitely does not apply to all 140 plus victors of Kowareta. A lot may very well just be list grinders looking for their next demon to beat. However, with the information I've gathered from both Braden Ball and French Fry, again, thank you very much to those two, we can get a general understanding of why so many people are beating Kowareta. Now the next logical question to answer is, why aren't similar levels like Kowareta and Cognition receiving the same level of love?
Let's start with Kowareta. Aside from being the only level mentioned that actually has good decoration, Kowareta's gameplay is structured quite different from Kowareta's. While both are learning is all hell, Kowareta is much faster and harder to read than Kowareta. At least with Kowareta, one could get a basic sense of what to do from just watching it, whereas Kowareta needs a fucking microscope on every frame in order to understand what needs to be done. While Kowareta is significantly easier than Kowa, it's a lot more intimidating based off just watching a video of it. That's probably why not many people have wanted to try and beat Kowareta, because of how it's at 90 miles per hour for essentially its entire runtime. Next, let's look at Cognition. Cognition has a lot more slow parts than Kowareta, but there's two main reasons to see why Cognition's victor count is less than half of Koroweta's. For starters, it's still in the top 20, which is reason enough on its own. Secondly, the amount of red orbs scattered around in problematic places is unnatural and very weird to deal with, especially in all the ship and UFO sections. While the timings in Kowareta aren't without their weirdness, they're not nearly as off-putting as these.
The final question I want to answer today is, why isn't Fragile getting the same level of love? I mean, for God's sake, it's Kowareta but longer. Ideally, that should be a Kowareta victor's dream.
To be completely specific, Fragile is a merge of two levels, Kowareta and Shibareta, but not a direct merge. The gameplay has been modified, but not for the better. The Shibareta part, which resides in the second half of the level, has been especially butchered. Some of the changes are for the better, like the first orb being considerably nerfed, but a lot of the changes are small little tweaks that alter the click patterns ever so slightly. Additionally, Fragile is a top 10, and over twice the length of Kowareta, so while it may seem easy to think that victors of Kowareta can easily translate that into a Fragile victory, it's really not that simple.
So that's, in a general sense, why so many people are beating Kowareta. I would imagine Kowareta will continue to drive more people to beat it, unless an even more accessible top 30 comes out, which I personally don't see happening until 2.2. Until then, be sure to congratulate anyone who's beaten Kowareta, because just because a lot of people have beaten it doesn't mean it's easy. Really, it just means you need to have a good mindset and a lot of endurance rather than just raw skill, which is unlike basically all other levels on the main list. Don't try and undermine other people's achievements. What one person might find easy, another person may find impossible. Not everyone is going to have the same experience with a level as you, and that's okay. It's what makes us different and unique. Doesn't affect you negatively if someone beats a level that you don't like. So there's no reason to send hate their way other than just being an asshole. And if you're an asshole, no one likes you. I hate to say it, but no one likes you. I'm sorry. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm glad to be back.